Hey everybody, thanks for joining me once again. Welcome to Straight Jacket White Rabbit. I'll be your host as always, Adam. Today I'm going to go on kind of a rant, you guys, about UFO evidence. I read a lot of message boards. I read a lot of anti-UFO, I guess you could call them debunkers. People like this. I go into chat rooms. I look for all these people who, because I want to know what their argument is against UFOs. What is their argument legitimately against there being UFOs? Because there's a lot of evidence for them. And I don't get into arguments, but I use their things and I learn what their argument against it is, and I look into it to see if it has any validity or not, or whether or not their claim is kind of baseless. And I just want to clarify some things real quick. You guys, there is a preponderance of evidence. I mean, there is a ridiculous amount of evidence that UFOs, USOs, UAPs, they all exist, and they have been here for a very, very long time. Now, when I say a very, very, very long time, I'm talking like the dawn of man or before. A lot of people don't talk about it, but you guys, we seem to be focused, or at least hyper-focused, on modern-day UFOs. I'm talking from the Italy crash in 33 all the way up until present day, like the experience that those people had in just outside of Las Vegas, or in Las Vegas, where they actually claimed to have seen the occupant of a UFO. That was more recently. But the modern era is relatively small, you guys. I mean, we've got documented accounts that people are chalking up to legends or myths or religions, or that are, I mean, very obviously accounts of some kind of machine in the sky. I mean, going back all the way to the book of Ezekiel, I mean, there's a preponderance of evidence from around the world. There's literally, I mean, if there's people there, they've seen these things. Easter Island, one of the most remote places on the planet, you guys. I mean, it's literally out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. People on Easter Island have seen UFOs. And something recently that was brought up was the egg-shaped UFO. If you guys have not seen the UFO recovery video of this egg-shaped UFO apparently being recovered by, I believe, helicopter, gives credence to the Easter Island lore of why they changed the gods they worship to the Birdman. For those of you who don't know, very long time ago on Easter Island, they worshipped a set of gods, or a god. I can't remember who it was exactly. I'm sorry, I don't have the stuff pulled up. But out of nowhere, archaeologists and other people who have studied their people have not been able to explain, but out of nowhere, they changed their religion to worship what they called the Birdman. According to the story of the people from Easter Island, this egg-shaped craft came down and landed on their island. And beings came out of it, the whole 9 yards. They actually have a tradition where they go and they put an egg out on this rock cliff out in the ocean. Just a standalone little plateau out in the ocean off their island. And these people will swim out there to it, climb up, and the first one to get to it is the winner, basically. This is all to celebrate the Birdman. The craft they described came down was an egg-shaped craft. Now, there's been a lot of talk about these throughout history. They don't get as much notoriety as the classic disc shape, or even in the more modern age, the triangles. But they are mentioned quite a lot in UFO lore, guys. And now with this recovery video supposedly showing another egg-shaped craft being recovered. So, I mean, like I said, there's mention of this throughout our entire history, guys. It's not just since the 1930s or so. That's just the modern era of this. And, like, I can go on and on about proof, and I'm going to. There have been numerous retired Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy officers, high-ranking officers, low-ranking officers, daily Joe Schmo military people. I mean, people of all ranks in the military, you guys, have come out of retirement, or not come out of retirement, gone into retirement. They usually come out and disclose all of this in very old age. And people say, well, they just did it for money, or they just did it. I mean, I wouldn't wait until I was about to croak to do it if I'm doing it for money. These people come out and they admit to things that were weighing on their mind that they've witnessed or they were part of. I mean, this is going all the way back to Jesse Marcel and the Roswell incidents and before. These people recant their story. They tote the official party line. And then at the end of their career, they go off, they retire, and when they're close to dying or they're old enough they just don't care anymore, they come forward and say, yeah, it was all true, and there was a crash site, and there was bodies, and, we look it up, you guys. I mean, there is so many, dozens and dozens of military personnel who have come out, usually at the end of their life or later on in life, but they've come out and said, look, yes, this incident happened, that incident happened, we witnessed this on my aircraft carrier. You guys, we pay our military for a reason. We, especially people like fighter pilots who come forward, these are people we trust with national security. We trust these people with millions and millions of dollars worth of aircraft to fly. We trust their sight, their sound of mind. We, you know what I mean? Their stability of mind. But all of a sudden they're starting to come out and say, we see UFOs, and all of a sudden the military and everyone's going, oh, well, they probably just thought they saw. No, they didn't think they saw. They saw these objects. They've come out and said it. Numerous people in the recent years, especially. How much evidence do you guys need? Project Blue Book. You guys, Project Blue Book, one of the all-time most popular things ever. Its own lead scientist later came out and was like, yeah, we were kind of given BS answers just to come up with answers as quickly as we could to calm the public, but there was something else to this. And he, investigating this, changed his mind from a skeptic, you guys, to not only a believer, but an avid researcher of this phenomenon. We've got encounters that have left actual radiation wounds on victims. We have the case of Travis Walton, where everyone in that instance passed their lie detector tests. They had absolutely no way or reason to know how to beat a lie detector test. People go, well, you could beat a lie detector test. These were loggers, guys. These guys went up in the woods and chopped down trees for a living. These were middle class America working men who were up doing a job in the mountains cutting down trees. You're going to tell me they researched how to beat a lie detector test, somehow got their hands on one to make sure it worked, and then, fabricated their story? No. Travis Walton was hit with a beam of light, knocked what looked to be dead or unconscious, and then pulled into an alien craft. Was missing for days and days and days and days and days and days. And then reappeared with not a whole lot of memory of what had happened to him or where he had been. He only recalled it later. And I don't think it's a case of convenience, which is what a skeptic would say. I don't believe that for a minute, because a case of convenience would be like, I want to know what the hell just happened to me. Not, oh yeah, I slightly remember it. And, as times went on, he said, I thought about it, and it was a scary situation. But he honestly believes these things only pulled him aboard the ship to fix what they had accidentally done to him. He believes that they had done some kind of damage to his body, his nervous system or something, his electrical system in his body maybe. But they were trying to help this man that they had hurt inadvertently with their ship. He believes that. It's not like the movie Fire in the Sky, where it looked like they were practically torturing him. Although, I understand why at first he was very scared and felt violated, and certainly was probably worried, concerned, and afraid. But there's I mean, there's wartime veterans who have seen these things on the battlefield on their feet. I'm talking about platoons who have seen these UFOs during Vietnam War, the Gulf War, Iraq, I mean, everywhere. We're seeing these things worldwide, and we are not the only ones seeing them. The British, the Chinese, the Swiss, the Russians, everyone sees these. Australia, Antarctica, the scientists stationed at the Antarctic base, they've claimed to see things in the night sky they can't explain that were UFOs. Like I said, you can go through history. I mean, there's talk of flaming wheels, spinning discs, bright lights that were spinning in the sky. All kinds of things that people just way too easily dismiss as some kind of, urban legend or like religious thing, or, oh, we saw our God in the sky. These are ancient peoples. They didn't know what these types of machines were. Any significantly advanced civilization, you guys, their technology would almost come and appear as magic to someone as unevolved as we were then, let alone what we are now, possibly. I mean, seriously, think about it. If you dropped off a nuclear reactor back in like the 1500s, they'd all think it was a cursed object. Everyone who tried to open it would die. You went in the room, you just all of a sudden got sick, got boils, your skin started messing up and peeling off. They would think it was cursed. They wouldn't understand it was a piece of technology that was being not meant to be opened and was dangerous. It's the same thing with us, guys. We see something we can't explain, and our government and disbelievers in general try to come up their hardest with just some simple-minded explanation that really doesn't cover the facts of the situations we've seen reported or recorded. Swamp gas. That's still one of my favorites our government gave. You're telling me that you think people are so stupid that a burst of flame coming from a swamp that maybe goes 8 to 10 feet, 12 at what most, is the same thing as a freaking bright light zipping in out of the woods in a swamp? That's not the same thing. Ball lightning isn't the same thing either. For those of you who've actually seen in videos or anything of ball lightning is not an accurate thing. And I'm not saying no one's ever mistaken these objects for UFOs, but it is so unlikely, guys. I mean, you would have to be very gullible to find some of these excuses that our government has given as valid excuses. Birds flying at night with reflective stomachs catching the light of street lamps. These are legitimate answers our government has given for explaining away UFOs. We've seen them over our nation's capital. We've seen them over our military sites. We've seen them over the most secured places in our world, you guys. Communist China, over their military and nuclear reactors. They don't mess around. There's a reason they haven't shot any down doing that, or at least not that we know of, because they can't. These things are far beyond what we're able to do, where we're able to move, how our aircraft evade. They've made numerous examples of stuff that have been coming out recent years in declassified documents, like the Russia missile incident, where these things activated nuclear missiles. If that's not a clear message, I don't know what is. That's, hey, we can mess with your technology. We can turn your technology off if we wanted. They've turned guidance systems, weapons systems off, not just in aircraft like fighter jets, you guys. They've done it to aircraft carriers. Our country's literal most important military asset is aircraft carriers. How is this not a national security issue that these things have turned off power and weapons on an aircraft carrier? Sorry about that. There's just, like I said, there's so many credible witnesses. There's so many unexplained events. There's so many sightings. And it goes back from all over the world, back to ancient times. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Jewish people, the Israelites, in Africa, like, tribes that don't agree on anything agree on seeing these things. You guys, I'm talking like tribes that war constantly, and still to this day, some of them kill each other. And they don't agree on anything, but they agree on seeing things in the sky that are not from here, Earth. It's time to wake up, and it's time to start asking questions of our government. And I mean hard questions, not, do you guys know that UFOs exist? We know they know that UFOs exist. I want the hard questions asked. Where are the craft at? Who has them? What private businesses have you gone into business with by giving them UFO technology to reverse engineer so that you could escape things like the FOIA? Those of you who don't know, FOIA is Freedom of Information Act requests. Governments have to provide them. However, private corporations and stuff, they don't have to keep those records. So if our military gives them access to the craft and says, yeah, we'll allow you to make money off of patents and things of the technology that we reverse engineer, there's no way to track that spending. That whole military project goes into the private sector. I want the hard questions asked. They're asking a lot of easy questions. The congressmen that have been here holding these hearings, and I'm getting really tired, and I know, you guys, it's a national security thing, and I know we're never going to get around it, but I'm getting really tired of hearing the excuses of, well, I can't divulge that because of security clearance reasons. Get some of these people some security clearances who can decide what the American public can handle, which we're not back in the days of, Orson Welles and them. People are not stupid. Look at this. We just had a congressional hearing where they said, yeah, UFOs are real. We have the proof. We have military pilots coming out. We have all this preponderance of evidence that are videos. And nobody even blinked an eye in our civilization. We've made it so Hollywood a topic that it's not even taboo anymore. On the one hand, that's a great thing. On the other hand, it's a bad thing because I don't feel people are taking it seriously. It's just become a topic where people are like, oh, that guy's watched too many movies. Another great piece of evidence, other than those military people that came forward, are people like Bob Lazar, who I've done a previous video about. Lazar came out in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, now I can't remember the dates, but he first came out as Dennis, and he reported on the site just adjacent to Area 51 called S4, I believe. And he came out and told everyone about the UFO reverse engineering they were doing there. He told them all about the elements that run this ship. He's done interviews and told people that even though he only had access to the inside of one of the ships at one time, he's been very, very clear, and his story hasn't changed at all about the description of the parts, the description of the power source, how small the inside of the craft actually was, that it appeared to be made for people who were about 3 to 4 feet tall. Just very, he's been very detailed, you guys. He's given a lot of evidence, and a lot of it came true, and nobody's given this poor man credit for this. Small people, I don't want to call him small, but newer, I'll say, advocates and journalists have given him some credit in recent years, but not nearly to the degree he deserves. The military came out and said, we never used a security device like his bone density scanner for the hand he was talking about. Find out they had them. People came out and said, Element 115, scientists, you guys, major university scientists came out and said, that doesn't exist, and that's rubbish, and you're full of it. Early 2000s, what element did they find? Element 115. This guy has told the truth every step of the way. If you choose not to believe the truth when you hear it, I guess you're free to believe what you're free to believe. But I get very passionate about this stuff, especially when, this isn't one guy. Look at Gary McKinnon, the freaking hacker that hacked into NASA. Got lists of ships that with non-terrestrial officers that weren't part of the Navy or any other freaking branch of the military that we could find. Well, what are these ships? Are they spaceships? Is that why we've all of a sudden started all these different space-based things in the United States? There's too many coincidences, too many verified witnesses, too many accounts throughout history, guys. I mean, how do you explain the fact that there were reports of giant flying metal objects way before we ever invented planes? Before we invented blimps? Before we invented hot air balloons? There shouldn't have been machines flying in our skies, but there are reports of it from around the globe. These types of naysayers who come with these weak, just ridiculous anti-alien thing. Oh, well, if there are aliens here, how come they haven't shown themselves to us yet? Who says they haven't? They might not have come and shown every person on Earth, but who says our leaders don't know about them? Who says our military hasn't found bodies? Or other militaries, for that matter. You know, people expect them to come down Independence Day style and blow up the White House or land on the White House lawn. You know, that's not always realistically, we don't have a clue what they look at diplomacy like. Maybe they decided we weren't ready to know that there was other life out there. We're relatively primitive compared to a society that would be able to do that kind of interstellar travel, guys. I mean, look at it on the lines of evolution. If they're 100,000 years ahead of us, and that's small in terms of interstellar numbers, they're 100,000 years ahead of us. How dumb are we going to be compared to them? How much more advanced is their thought process? We don't know that it is, but it could be vast. We don't know that their diplomacy would look anything like it. How do you know they didn't just contact telepathically with leaders around the world and said, look, we're here. We don't want you to discuss what's going on. We've had members of different countries, you guys, talking about an alien coalition. Like, I'm talking Star Trek, like, you know what I mean? The Federation of Planets type of stuff. There's been two different I'm not going to say world leaders. I believe one was a prime minister, and I believe the other one was the Secretary of Defense for a different country, not America. One was Canada, and one was, I want to say either Afghanistan or Iraq. But go look it up. These people came out and said that there is a Federation of Planets, basically, that our world is basically being initiated into, or negotiating for an entrance to. I don't know how it goes. I haven't, talked to anyone about that. But there's so much. People who can't connect the dots to these events, I genuinely believe that they just want to remain blind. They're the same type of people who say ghosts don't exist with absolutely no backing for the claim ghosts don't exist. Well, why don't you say that ghosts don't exist? They just don't. Well, what about all the videotape evidence of ghosts moving stuff on their own? Or responding to questions by using an electromagnetic field reader or a flashlight? Oh, well, that's just those people trying to rig stuff, or hoaxes, or, random events that just happen to coincide with the question they asked. There's a lot of naysayers out there, guys. The thing is, if you want to defend your position, learn the facts. You can always shoot down somebody if you've researched your facts solid and you know the arguments against what they're going to say. Like I said, as far as UFOs go, you can't convince me that the UFOs don't exist. They're here, they're out, we know they exist. What I want to know is who are they? Are they aliens? Are they beings from another dimension who happen to come through like that instead of traveling from another planet? Maybe they're out from another planet and another dimension. Who knows? Those are the interesting questions I want to know where they're from exactly. In our world and different places around our world, we seem to focus on a lot of different star systems, but they're majorly like 5 or 6 star clusters that we tend to obsess around. You know, Orion's belt, the Seven Sisters, things like that. All these different star systems and things that we've talked about. People like ancient cultures have talked about the sky people who came from this star over here. The Aborigines who knew about a star next to Centauri, Proxima Centauri A, I believe it is, Proxima Centauri B, the smaller one that's dying. They knew about that before we even had an invention that could see it. It wasn't visible in the night sky by eye, and they knew it was there. And according to their handed down verbal traditions of their history, that's where the aliens came from. Well, how did they even know that that star was there when you can't see it? It's too dim to see with the naked eye, guys. You know, things like this. And we ignore this evidence, or we, as a society, we tend to, I don't know, the word I'm trying to think of is we just dismiss it way too easily as, oh, it's just a myth, or oh, it's just them telling a story about how they interpreted how they got there. These events happened. People have been recording history since the dawn of history, guys. They don't just record stories. People don't just record stories. We don't just make things up and write books. We record history. We always have. Cavemen painted things they saw. They painted buffalo and deer and their people hunting with bows and arrows out on the plains. We painted and drew what we saw. Yes, there are works of fiction. I'm not saying there's not. But you can't discount everything as fiction just because it was a long time ago and we don't have anyone to tell us it was fact. That's not proof that it's fiction just because you can't prove that it was fact. Well, if that's the case, you can't prove it's fiction. These events are told to people who handed them down from generation to generation to generation. You don't know that they were lying. You can't prove that they were lying. But you have no problem getting on the internet and spouting off to people that they don't know what they're talking about. I've done the research. I've read the books. I've watched all the videos. I am very well read on the subject of UFOs. And if you're going to tell me they don't exist, I'm going to come up with an argument for you. And I hate to say it, but I'm probably going to win. And that's not to my viewers. That's to the people I was talking about in these rooms. A lot of them come off very offended when you counter their ideas. People get hurt when new ideas don't mesh with theirs. I'm okay with adapting my ideas to new things as new information comes to me. That's what a reasonable person does. When you get new information, you add it in and see what you come up with. You don't just dismiss it. Well, no, I have my theory set right here. Your theory's crud. You take in new information. I will always be willing to adapt what I know. But you can't say, here's something new. Everything else you know is now irrelevant or never happened or isn't true. You have to figure out where the pieces fit together, you guys, and be peaceful about it. You know, it's okay to have different opinions about UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. I don't care. But don't degrade each other over different opinions. Use an open mind and listen to what people... Me and my brother, you guys, a lot of you are from my brother's page. Me and my brother do not always agree on things. But we love listening to each other's ideas because we have open minds, and sometimes it even gives us ideas. Well, yeah, okay, well, I understand that now, and that could work with what I believe if this were true. And then you look into it and see if it works, and if it does, then you found another link. Always try to stay open-minded. It's great when you find people who believe what you believe, but it's even better when you find people who don't believe what you believe, but you guys can work together to kind of see if there's anything that you have in common in your stories or your belief systems or your, ghost hunters especially do this, Don't dismiss another ghost hunter because he has a story that differed from yours. Well, I've never been scratched by a ghost. I've only collected EVPs. That guy said he got scratched. He's not telling the truth. Just because you have your experience doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have their experience, guys. But yeah, no, like I said, I wanted to go on a short little rant here about evidence, and I didn't even bring up everything I want to. I want to do an actual, I think I'm going to do an in-depth video on all of the evidence throughout history, all the examples, all the paintings, all the mentions in scripture, Sumerian tablets, the Egyptian writings, all of the, ancient Americans, ancient natives from different lands. I want to get all of these and kind of compile a little list and database to give to you guys and go through. So I might do that at a future date. For right now, I'm going to actually go out with my son for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I hope you guys had a great time here watching me on my video. And I'm going to have another one coming up relatively soon. I'm actually probably going to film it tonight. I may release it tonight. We'll see. But once again, this has been Straight Jacket White Rabbit, and I appreciate you guys listening.